All right. Hi, everyone. It's Morgan here at Jotform. Welcome to today's webinar, and thank you for joining us for our session about Jotform Cards. Today, we'll be looking at features of cards and how this type of form can help increase your conversion rates. Cards isn't a new product or feature from Jotform, but this year we're taking some time to go back to Jotform basics. We're doing that for a couple of reasons. I have gotten hundreds of comments over the past couple of years of hosting webinars from folks like many of you on the line who are brand new and want any Jotform information possible, or maybe are experienced and still want more Jotform information, more introductory information. We've also added about 10 million new users over the past year and a half. So basically, we want to provide live educational content about all things Jotform for those of you who are new or have been around and just want more info. So we are kicking this series of Back to Basics off today with Jotform Cards, and stay tuned for more about that. All right. So you'll find that when you get started with creating a form in Jotform, you'll have two choices. You can use the classic form, which is your traditional form layout where all of the questions appear on a single page, or you can use the card layout where each question has its own page. Both versions have their place. There are no hard and fast rules about which to use. There are no limits on either about the number of questions that you have. So what you use for each form will be up to you to decide, and you might want to consider your purpose for the form, your audience, etc. Classic forms might be better for longer, more detailed forms, for example, things like job applications, patient intake, or class registration. These forms, again, tend to be longer. There are often related questions, so it can be helpful for people filling them out to see all of the questions in the context of everything else they'll be asked, so they know what's coming. On the other hand, card forms can be fantastic for quick conversational interactions with your audience, for things like feedback forms, adding people to mailing lists, and booking requests. Again, no strict rules there, but those are just some examples of how you might use one versus the other. There are a number of features of cards that set them apart from classic forms. On the next slide, I'll talk about some of the fields specifically, but I also wanted to talk just generally about the features. So you will find that card forms look different from classic forms, both in their layout, but also in the way each question is laid out and structured. There are additional features as well, like address autocomplete and geolocation, as well as email verification. Those are features that make it easier for people to add personal data to forms and to ensure that that data is correct. Progress bars built into card forms show users how much further they have to go in the form. And micro animations also built into cards show people if a response is invalid or incomplete. When it comes to how you design your card forms, just like with your classic forms, you have default color schemes and default image backgrounds. You can also add your own. But with cards, you also have the option to add a video background as well. All of these features come together to make your form fun, quick, and easy for your users, and hopefully just as fun, quick, and easy for you to set up as well. Let's talk about those unique fields now. So again, you can choose whichever style of form you'd like when you're creating a form. So you should be aware of the subtle differences between card and classic forms and the fields that are available in each. First, card forms include a welcome page that helps jumpstart the conversational tone that you're used to in this type of form. You can use this to include a personalized message and an icon, and this page also shows your users how many questions there are in the form. If you don't want to include this page, it's very easy to remove. I'll show you how to do that when we get out to our demo. And you can do something like this in classic forms, but it's just not automatically included by default like it is with cards. Since cards is an ideal option for feedback forms, you'll also see fields that are really tailored for these quick types of feedbacks. There is an emoji slider field, as well as a yes or no question field. Again, these are things that you can sort of replicate the response you're trying to get at here in classic forms, but it's not structured as in the same way, and it's not quite as built into classic forms. In line with card forms being a fun and interactive options, there is a unique field called an image choice field where you can upload images that your users can choose from. This might be ideal for any number of reasons, but one example that I can think of is asking your team or trusted clients to weigh in on new logo ideas. I'll talk about another example in the demo as well. And if you do have questions that it makes sense to lump together and you want to lump together, there is also a field where you can add a multi-line selection and have a few choice questions appear on the same card. This isn't replicated in the classic version of forms because in classic version, all of those questions appear together anyway. So those are the fields that are unique to cards. On the flip side, there are some things that are not available in cards, namely certain widgets. So there are some widgets that just aren't maximized for card forms. And so if you're looking for a widget in cards and don't see it, that means it's not currently available in cards. So if there is a widget that you absolutely need to use, make sure that you check for it before you commit to the card format. But if you're starting with cards and you want to switch to classic or vice versa, you do have that option as well. I've woven some of the benefits of cards into this presentation already, but I also wanted to take a moment here to summarize that and talk more explicitly about how these increase conversions. I'm sure a number of you on the line are here specifically wondering about conversion rates. The single question design of cards minimizes distractions by forcing respondents to focus on one thing at a time. There are numerous studies that show that conversational forms like cards increase conversions, getting you more responses in less time and more accurate information just by virtue of the way that they're designed. In fact, very relevant today, one of the most popular types of more conversational forms I can think of is TurboTax. Nobody likes doing taxes, and TurboTax is, I think personally, does make it as easy as possible, again, by kind of guiding you through the form and having you focus on only one thing at a time. In addition to that, the progress bars and showing the number of questions up front for people lets folks know just how much time they'll be spending on a form before they get into it. And features like this increase the chances that somebody will complete a form because they understand the time commitment upfront. There are also additional studies that show that the longer a form is or the more questions it has, the less likely somebody is to complete it. That drop-off happens very quickly after just 2 or 3 questions or just a minute of time. So again, letting people know upfront how much time they can be expected to spend in a form helps sort of alleviate some of the people that you will lose along the way. Micro animations help ensure fewer errors by alerting users when something looks wrong or is incomplete. Fields like address autocomplete, or the features like address autocomplete and email verification do the same by minimizing opportunity for human error. Image select and the emoji slider keep things fun and interesting and keep people engaged throughout the process. So all told, with cards, you can expect more responses overall and more complete and accurate data. Again, a lot of that is just by virtue of the way that cards are designed and some of these fields and features that are built into it. But of course, in addition to that, there are things that you can do to help increase conversions as well. A lot of those go hand in hand with these features that I've just talked about. So for example, you do have the ability to remove that welcome page or remove that number of questions up front and remove that progress bar. But again, generally speaking, that will encourage some people at least to continue with your form. So it's best practice to leave those in. In addition to that, really the best practice is for you to keep your forms as simple, straightforward, short, and clear as possible. Make sure that you don't have any unnecessary questions or any redundant questions. If you are choosing to require any fields, make sure that you're not requiring too many fields. Only require the fields that you absolutely need and give people the flexibility of being able to skip a field, even if that means some incomplete data. You can use conditional logic, both in classic and card forms, to skip sections of a form that some people don't need to fill out based on an answer that they've already given. You also want to use pretty straightforward language overall, generally speaking, language that an elementary school student could understand. That just helps make your forms accessible to as many people as possible. And in addition to that, you want to be clear about outcomes and next steps. So if you're having people fill out a form so that they can get an ebook, for example, make sure that you tell them upfront when they can expect to see that ebook. Is it right after they fill out the form, it gets sent to them? Is there a link that you'll provide? You can also use the built-in thank you pages in Jotform to remind them of how to get that information. Finally, the best way to get people to fill stuff out is to offer incentives if you have any opportunity to do that. If this is a new user or a new person to your company filling out a contact form, maybe you can offer some kind of one-time discount or a free consultation. You know, those little sign-up things that we all see these days when we're browsing any website that often offer a shopping discount on something you're trying to purchase. That is a great way to get people to give you their data, so offer them something in return. Okay, so hopefully that has been helpful in giving you, again, a general sense of cards and how cards differ from our classic forms, as well as how cards increase conversion rates and what you can do to make sure that you're also doing the best you can to increase those conversion rates. At this point, I'm going to transition us into our demo. And I am starting our demo here today on my Forms landing page. This is the page that you see when you sign into Jotform. Very quick introduction for those of you who might be brand new here. You'll see navigation menus along the top here, including templates for all of the Jotform tools, support resources, etc. You'll see some navigation options here. In the center of the page are all of your active forms, and there's form organization on the left-hand sidebar. If you hover over a form, you'll see all of the options of what you can do with that form. Here is your Create Form button that we'll come back to in just a couple of seconds. And here is a drop-down menu where you can navigate to other Jotform tools. So if you want to look at your approvals, for example, or your assigned documents, you just click one of these, it will take you to the landing page for that product, which will look identical to this, except you'll see whatever that product is. Okay, so now let's get started with creating a form. I'm not going to show you any of these options today, keeping in line with the theme of helping people focus on one thing at a time. But if you are just getting started, we do have thousands of templates that you can use, both in cards and in classic forms. You can import forms from a PDF or a website. You can also import a PDF to create assignable documents. You can clone forms that already exist. So there are a lot of options to get started. In this case, we're going to focus on starting from scratch. And here's where you'll choose between your classic and your card version of the form. So of course, I'm going to choose card forms. If you have used the classic version of forms before, you'll notice that overall, this looks almost identical to what you'll see as you're building your classic forms. And even as I add questions here, even though for users, they will appear on their own pages, those questions are all going to appear on the same page here as well. So for the most part in the demo today, I'm going to focus on those features and fields that are unique to cards, and I'll talk a little bit about how that differs from our classic forms. Otherwise, most of what you're seeing here again will be exactly what you can see in our classic forms as well. I'm going to start with design. On the right-hand side of the page is the Form Designer paint roller icon. You can click on that to open up your design elements. And you'll see your default color scheme options here that you can choose any of those, browse through your default image options. And then again, entirely unique to cards are your video options as well. For any of these, you can also customize your background as well. So if you want to match your branding or something else that you're putting together, you can do that here on the custom menu. I'm just going to stick with one of our videos here today. I'm usually looking forward to a tropical vacation, so I'm going to use palm trees, and we're actually going to create a hotel feedback form today, so you can pretend with me that we're all on a tropical vacation. In addition to those three menus that you see here, there is a layout option as well. I mentioned in the slides that you can switch from a card form to a classic form. So that means that you can convert your forms after you've already started creating them. If I wanted to move this form to a classic form, all I need to do is click on classic and it will convert this to a classic layout. Same thing in classic forms, you'll find it in exactly the same spot. You can click on card form and it will convert to the card layout. Next, let's talk about the welcome page and the thank you page. Those are both built into card forms. You do have a thank you page built into your classic forms as well, but you'll find it in a different location. You'll find it under settings. Either way, in either version of forms, you can entirely edit your thank you page here. So if I did have an ebook I wanted to point people to, I could edit this text to say, you'll see a link in your email shortly, or whatever I wanted to include there. There's also a welcome page here. So I mentioned that this is unique to cards. You can add a welcome screen to your classic forms, but again, this is built into cards. You see a welcome message here, a short description, an icon. Here's where users will see the number of questions that they have to answer. It's a 0 because I haven't added questions yet, but once it's ready for somebody to use, they'll see the number of questions there. So I'm going to go ahead and start changing this hotel survey. Hope you're enjoying your stay. I'm also going to change the icon just by clicking on the icon here. I can remove that and upload my own image, or there are a number of icons to choose from. You can see a whole lot of them here. I'm going to stick with this palm tree design and use a palm tree icon. I, again, can remove the number of questions here, but I generally recommend that you keep that in. And if you do want to remove the welcome page for any reason and have people just jump into the survey directly, your option to remove the welcome page is right here. So you do need to have this open, and then you'll see that link here. Okay, so next I want to focus on those form elements, those fields that are unique to cards or are built into cards in a way that maximizes them for this format. So I'm going to open the Add Form Elements bar on the left-hand side of the page here. Again, this is almost identical to what you'll see in classic forms, just a little bit, couple different options here of basic elements. But your basic elements are the ones that are going to be very common in most forms. There are also 30 plus payment integration options that you can use both in card and in classic versions of forms. And finally, you'll see the widgets menu here as well. So you can search through that, browse, etc. I'm going to just go ahead and start adding in some basic fields. So I'll add name, generally something you want to collect in a form. I'm also going to add email, and let's say I want to add address as well. I mentioned a couple of things that are unique to the email and the address field. First, built into cards is an option for email verification. You won't see this in the classic version of forms. To edit any field that you add to your page, you just need to click on that field and look for the gear widget icon here, and that's where you'll see properties for that field. So if I click on that and open that up for email, you'll see a couple of things that I want to point out here. A number of different menus. In options here, I can limit specific domains, for example. Confirmation for email is where I want to go to add in that confirmation option. So I can add in a confirmation field so that people have to double enter their email address so we can make sure that the email address is listed correctly. There's also an option to validate with a verification code. If I add this, somebody will get a verification code to the email they provide, and they will need to enter that code before they can move forward with the form, even if you're not requiring the email field. I'm not going to have that on for now, but that is what the process looks like. Back in general, you'll see pretty just common things about the sizing and alignment of your fields, but I also wanted to point out the required fields here. So if you do want to require any field in your form, you just want to toggle that to on, and you'll see that option in the general menu of any properties for any of your fields. When you do turn required on, you'll see a red asterisk next to the fields, and that indicates that it's required. For address, let's open up that properties menu as well. So again, I've clicked on address to open that up. Same thing on that general tab. You can see a lot of the same fields that I just showed you in email. If I scroll all the way to the bottom of the general tab here, that's where I can add that autocomplete option. So this is where if somebody starts typing their address, it will automatically give them options of addresses to choose from. Again, minimizes some human error there. And once you turn autocomplete on, you can also choose whether or not you want the geolocation added as well. So again, that will allow somebody to just pinpoint their location on a map. I'm not going to use that today, but I will show you how the autocomplete works. So I currently have a couple of different contact fields here. Let's say instead of having each of these on their own page, I wanted a single page that was just for contact information. That's one example of where that multi-line question comes in handy. So I can also drag and drop that to add it to my form. And my Zoom panel bar is a little bit in the way here. So it's like to just drag that so I can show you this demo without this being in my way. All right. So here you can name whatever you want to call this line question, this multi-line question. I'm going to call this contact information. You can edit the text either here on the field itself or here in the properties. And once you have this multi-line question, then you'll select the elements that you want to add. There are only a couple of options available, but let's say I want to add a text box for name. So I'll add the sub-label name to that. And let's say I want to go ahead and add an email field here as well. So again, this would be in lieu of the contact information that I've asked for above. All right, next let's look at those survey elements that I mentioned that are unique to cards. So first we have the yes, no question option. Here I have added that in. Let's say, are you enjoying your stay? Is the question we want to ask here. This can be any positive or negative value, any binary choice. So I can change this from yes to yeah, no to no, thank you, whatever, whatever you want that to be there, you have that option here. And again, you can replicate this in your classic version of forms. In order to do that, you basically add a single choice menu and just have yes and no as the options, but the layout overall looks a little bit different. So you can see this is just a big, bold, big button that somebody has to push to answer. So it is really ideal for things like short surveys like this. I also want to add in that emoji slider. So let's go ahead and add that. Once again, you can see, pretty straightforward description here. It's exactly what it sounds like, an emoji slider where somebody can select how they feel about something on a slide here. Please rate our features. I can also add additional rows. So let's say I want this first row to be the room. I want the second row to be the hotel lobby, etc. And I can have people weigh in on all of those features using the emoji slider. In the properties menu for that, if you go into fields, you can also change the input type. So you can have just a slider, you have the emoji slider. You can also build more of an input table. You do have an input table option here as well, right above the emoji slider in the elements toolbar. And you will see an input table in your classic version of forms as well. But again, this does just look a little bit different. It would look similar to this. I'm going to stick with my emoji slider here. And then the last field that I wanted to mention is that unique field about the image choice. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And you can see here, we can add any number of different images. We can have this be a single choice or a multi-choice, so people can select one or many different options. Let's say in this case, I want to say, did you check out these features? Here I can go into options, and that's where I would add in my images. I can upload an image or choose from an icon. So let's say I want to add in business center as an option. I have a little like a projector image here. Let's say I want the cafe. We got a hamburger here or a veggie burger, depending on your preferences. Let's say I have an alarm clock here. Let's say we want to ask about wake up calls. And so I'm going to ask people if they checked out any of these features. Since this is something where I want them to select all of the features they checked out, I'm going to make this a multiple selection so they can select everything they need. You also have a surveying option here where you can limit the number of responses that people can give, the number of selections they give, or shuffle so everybody's seeing things in a different order. Okay, so at this point, my form is set up. The next thing I want to show you is what this looks like to your users. So I have shown you all of these unique fields and pointed out where you can find everything else. Let's see what this looks like to the person filling out the form. So starting here, you can see that welcome page. We have the hotel survey title and the information about it. I've included the number of questions here. I can hit the start button to get started with the form. I have my name field. Email here is required, so I will have to fill that out. So we got Morgan at Jotform, and I will add that to my confirm email. If I try to add this, if I try to move forward without adding that, you see that the box here kind of shakes a little bit and the email gets highlighted. That's the micro animation that I talked about. So again, this is incomplete data. It's letting me know something is wrong here. So let's go ahead and paste my email in, and now I should be able to hit next and move on. We have the address here. So again, I added that autocomplete so I can start entering my address and then choose the correct address from here. We have that contact information. This is the multi-line choice where I have name and email address here. So this could be in lieu of the previous couple of fields, or you can use this for really anything you'd like. At the bottom of the form here, you see the progress bar that I mentioned. You can remove this if you'd like, but I generally recommend keeping that in so people know where they are in the process. If you use conditional logic, which you can add both to cards and classic versions of forms, you'll see that the progress bar will skip people ahead so that it doesn't look like they're on question 2 when they're really on question 9 or whatever the case may be. And we can just go ahead and fill out more of this. Please rate our features. Let's say the room is great, lobby's great. This is a beautiful hotel. And let's say I checked out the business center and the cafe. I submit that. And you can see that the last question takes me to a submit button rather than a next button. I did that, and I now have the thank you page, which again, I could have customized, but I chose not to. But again, you can use that for anything you'd like to point people to. All right, so that's your user experience. There are 2 more things that I want to point out here. First, I want to take you into tables. This is something that I find out that a lot of people don't really know about. When you are using Jotform, either cards or classic forms, that form will automatically be connected to a table that gets created right alongside the form. You don't have to do anything to set this up. The table pulls in every field from your form, and as people complete your form, that data gets collected in the table where you can sort, browse, filter, you can create reports based on it, you can download all of your data, etc. So here you can see all of the responses that I just provided: email, address. I have my yes, I'm enjoying the stay, the features, and the features that I checked out. So there's one response here because I'm the only person who's filled it out, but as more people start responding, more responses, all of those responses will get collected here. The last thing that I want to point out before we go into some Q&A is, especially when we're talking about conversion rates, is that you do have form analytics built into your form as well. This is another thing that I find that a lot of people don't know about. So for every form that you have within Jotform, if you hover over or click on the form and go to more and look under data for form analytics, you'll see an analytics panel for that form specifically. Here you can see the number of views and responses, the conversion rate, how much time it's taking people or how much time they're spending in the form. You can view that by week, month, all time, or custom. You also have information about the devices people are using, which could help you maximize something for the various platforms that people are using, whether it's mobile or desktop. You can see here that I'm using a Chrome browser. So you'll also see the platforms that people are using, and you'll generally see the location of where they're coming from as well. So again, so far, this doesn't look like much because I'm the only person who's filled out this form, but as more people start filling out the form, more data is collected, and you'll see this information populate. I think this is really, again, really important if you are trying to increase conversion rates. Maybe you want to switch from a classic form to a card form and see if that helps anything. Maybe you want to tweak some of the questions that you have in a form and see if that changes anything. Maybe you want to produce 2 versions of the same form and see if there's a difference in response rates. You can do all of that with this form analytics. So that's really important when you're thinking about how your forms are performing. All right, so that wraps up the demo. I am going to just briefly talk about some slides, and then my colleague Lainey, Lainey, I'm so sorry I forgot to introduce you, but Lainey has been behind the scenes with questions. Lainey is going to ask us some live questions that we can, that I can help address as well. So a couple resources here. When we did roll out cards a few years ago, we had an Intro to Jotform Cards webinar. There's a bit of overlap between that and this, but if you wanted more information about cards, I recommend checking that out. This user guide breaks down more the difference between card and classic versions of forms. So talks about, the things that I showed you, but goes into a little bit more detail about all of those if you're weighing your options. And finally, I talked about a couple of examples of where cards might come in handy. I showed you a survey, shared another couple of examples in the slides there. But if you're looking for inspiration on how you might want to use the card versions of forms, this blog is a really helpful blog as well. It shows you a couple of different use cases and images of what that might look like as well. I will leave this up for a Q&A. And at this point, Lainey, do you want to pop on and have a couple of minutes to go through some questions?
Sure thing, Morgan. Thanks so much for all the information. Really, really appreciate it. You do such a great job with these webinars. So we've had quite a few questions come in. So I will highlight a few of the more popular ones. Someone is asking if you can turn off the progress bar.
Yeah. So I briefly mentioned that. Let me go back into the demo screen and I can show you where you can do that. If you do want to do that, you do have that option. So sorry, the Zoom panel is always in the way of whatever I'm trying to do when I'm doing these demos. So if you want to turn that off, you want to go into settings And you want to stay in form settings here and look for show more options. It's somewhere toward the bottom of the page here. Show form progress. So with cards, again, by default, that is something that will be there, but you can turn that off if you'd like.
Great. Thanks for showing that again. And then somebody else is asking if you can use conditional logic in card forms. Looks like you're in the perfect place to show that.
Yes, absolutely. And I mentioned at the top of the session that, this year we're going to be doing some webinars that are more introductory Jotform information, share with you everything about the platform. We will absolutely have a conditional logic webinar coming up at some point this year. That is probably the most popular question that I see. So for either classic or card versions of forms, you have your conditional logic here. So you can, again, I'm in the settings panel. You just want to go to conditions and you can see the various different condition types here, whether you want to skip a field or a couple of fields or skip to a different page, change a thank you page based on responses, etc.
Great. Another question about customizing forms. Someone is looking for ways to match their branding. Can you show those options again real quick?
Yeah, for sure. So back on our build tab, if you go to that paint roller, the form designer here, there are these default color schemes, images, and videos, but all of those also have this custom tab. If you click on the custom tab in any of those, it's the same menu. Here you can add your own image, your own video. You can choose colors that match your branding, etc. You can choose a font family here. There is a little bit more flexibility in the classic forms as far as matching design. So if you have to be like spot on match design, I would recommend classic forms for that. But for the most part, you can do your color matching here. You can also add in a logo, your company logo, at the on the welcome page here. I'm not sure if everybody noticed, but this icon that I added here also shows up throughout the form as somebody's completing the form. So if you want to add a logo or your own icon, that will show up and match your branding in that way as well.
Great. Then somebody else was asking if you can embed card forms.
Yeah, for sure. If you go into your publish menu, so we've now looked at build and settings. Now we'll look at publish. This is where I went to open up the user version of the forms. I did that by open in new tab, but this is where you'll see all of your sharing options. So your embed options are the second tab down, and you see a bunch of different options here. And if you wanted to do like third-party publishing, there's some more options there as well. But here is where you can find any of the embed codes that you need.
Great. And we're getting a lot of people interested in trying this out for the first time. So several people are asking if having cards costs extra or where they just get started trying this out.
Yeah, cards is included with your Jotform license. So there is no additional charge. Excuse me. Again, we're coming to you today just to make sure that everybody who wants information about Jotform has it. So this is part of your license, regardless of what license you have. Your form limits, any of your limits based on your license will be the same when you're using card forms or classic forms. So you can go ahead and get started with cards right now if you want. And again, you will find that option if you're starting from scratch. Once you hit that start from scratch here, you also have template options. So if I click use template here, here you can see all of our templates, but you can specifically look for card templates as well.
Fabulous. And then a little bit more of an advanced question is, can you disable a form after a certain number of submissions are received?
Yeah, you have a couple of options of when and how you can disable a form. I think this is another feature that maybe we'll highlight later in the year. Is just a webinar where we go through all of the different form settings. There are a couple of options here, but you'll see here, actually just right here on the page, form status here, you can disable your form at a specific date or after a specific number of responses. So currently my form is enabled. I just built it. I'm accepting submissions. I can entirely disable a form if I don't want to be able to accept submissions anymore. I can choose to disable on a specific date. When it comes to submission limits, there you go. So if you want to limit this to the first 100 people who respond, you can add that, choose what the submission limit is, and also add in your message for what happens when people try to fill it out after that limit is hit.
Excellent.
Yeah. there's also one additional option there as well, where you can do either or date or submission limit.
Great, great, great. And then one follow-up question on with regards to getting started and trying it out. Someone was asking if you can use Jotform cards with more than one teammate, with more than one colleague.
Yeah, actually, Lainey, that might be a great question for you to share more about, because that's I think that leads pretty seamlessly into our enterprise teams feature.
Yeah, that's my favorite subject, no doubt. So yeah, if you look on Jotform's website, you can look at Jotform Enterprise, and that is our multi-user solution. It's designed specifically for teams to collaborate together. You have a lot more robust features for team collaboration, including Jotform Teams, with which Morgan just mentioned, which is online workspaces where you can collaborate and share forms, keep up to date on what your teams are doing. And we also have a new product that just launched that's coming up. So we're very excited. There's just always something new and exciting happening at Jotform Enterprise. So I encourage you to take a look. If you are considering collaborations with your teams, take a look at Jotform Enterprise.
Yeah, and there's a very long string website here with UTMs and everything, but you can just go to jotform.com/enterprise to find that page.
Oh. I think that was pretty much. I'm just checking one last time in the stream for more questions. One last question, and this is, does cards work well for mobile surveys?
Yeah, for sure. You can use, I'm gonna go back to my demo here. There is an option to use Jotform on your mobile devices. There's also a Jotform app that you can use to set all of that up. So we have a number of resources about that. And probably if you want to hear more about using Jotform in a mobile capacity, you might want to just get in touch with me. I'd be happy to point you to those resources. That goes for that person and really anybody else on the line as well. If you have additional questions, you can reach me at morgan@jotform.com. You can also reach our support team. I think that's jotform.com/help, maybe. That is the best way to get in touch with our support team. They're happy to get in touch to talk to you about any questions that you have too.
Perfect. I think that's pretty much everything. We had a lot of folks asking about access to the recording. So we might just reiterate that this will be on the YouTube channel later. So I think that's it from my end, Morgan.
Great. Thank you, Lainey. And sorry again for not introducing you at the top, but thank you so much for the help with the questions. I appreciate it. Yes, as Lainey just mentioned, if you go to youtube.com/thejotform, you'll see this and all of our other webinars and other videos. So you can check that out at any time. This should be up on that YouTube site immediately. You will also get a link to the recording within the next couple of days as well. And again, if you need it immediately or you have any additional questions, you can check in with me, morgan@jotform.com. And again, we will have a number of additional Intro to Jotform sessions coming up this year, as well as a whole slew of other webinars about new products and new features. So stay tuned for more from us, and hopefully we will see you at the next webinar.